I didn't realize my bio is that long, so I will better cut it short. I know this is like 6 p.m. This group is anxiously waiting who's going to win. This group is anxiously waiting about the food outside. I'm honest, I'm also anxiously waiting for the food outside, right? So I'll try to just, after three wonderful speakers, I don't think I will give you a fresh insight, but I will give you some of my own synthesis on inclusive innovation and future of work. And that's why I picked this title, Designing the Future of Work, when you're walking in this whole new world of data and quantified self, where every single thing which you do is a data which is feeding into the world. So how do you really design that future of work when you are actually future of work? You are actually role modeling that, especially this guy sitting in right side of mine. I think we all hear this term, second machine age, fourth industrial revolution, cyber physical systems, a lot of these new terms which are coming out in the world, right? But when you really think about it from a layman's standpoint, what's happening? What's going on? We are really living in this interconnected mesh where devices, data, people, algorithm, all coming together. Cyber physical systems coming together, right? Some people say cyber physical biological systems coming together. I just met a guy, very interesting guy in Singapore, actually, where I live, last week. You know what this guy told me? He says that I'm sick of carrying a bus card in my pocket. So what he did was he took out the chip of the bus card, right, and put it in his skin so that he can just go and tap the hand and then go inside the bus or train. A classical cyber physical biological system merger. Of course, then he was told by folks that that's not allowed. It's not yet ethical to really merge cyber physical into your biological system. But that's the world we are living in, right? People talked about public-private partnership. She talked about public-private platform partnership. I'm going to talk about what MIT talks actually, human-machine partnerships, right? Are we all ready? That's the question. And that's where the inclusive innovation, and I come from a remote rural India background, and that's why this question fascinates me a lot. What it will take for you guys who are in early 20s or early 30s, when you become 40, 50, when you can really change the needle for the world, what kind of skills, what kind of task you will take to really do that. And it's not about robot, which is kind of taking away the jobs. Robots may take away the task for sure, and that's why you guys have to be smarter than robot to decide which task you can do and which task robot can do. It's not about job, but it's about a task shift. So you need to think about a job and work and let robot think about taking away the task, right? So in that context, we are all talking about evolving in this whole new world of artificial intelligence. What is, again, MIT prof, Thomas Maloney calls it as a supermind. If some of you are interested in reading that book, please go ahead and read it. A very fascinating book which talks about this whole new notion of building collective intelligence. It's not about human intelligence alone now or an artificial intelligence alone now, but coming together and really bringing this broader general intelligence notion, right? Well, from an inclusive innovation standpoint, if you think about that collective intelligence notion, it's an opportunity. Every single day is an opportunity. Every single thing is a big opportunity. I'm optimistic. There are lots of pessimism around this, especially around loss of job. But I look at each of the big global challenges which are around us as an opportunity to these guys, the guys who think every single moment, innovate, 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 disrupt, disrupt, disrupt. And I come from that industry. If you think about Intel, 50 years back, computer was of this room size. Today, compute power in this is far bigger than what computer was. It's only because Moore's law. If you don't know what is Moore's law, every 2 years, double the power of compute at half the cost or less the cost, right? And if you don't have that mother principle on your head that you better disrupt yourself, otherwise you'll be out, right? Computer would not have been this powerful. It would have remained this powerful, this big. So all these issues which we are talking about, and especially sustainable development goals, I'm very optimistic that there are smart people here in the room who can solve it. But the question is, what's the pathway? I think we all talk about inclusive innovation, runway or a pathway, right? And the first speaker spoke very well about building the skills for the next generation. I think next generation, especially the younger people in the group here, you guys need to learn the trick, and it's a trick more than anything else, on articulating a business case of it when you're going into it. It's not just so much about a social case or an economical case. It has to be presented like a combination of social, economical, and business skills, then only you will attract more mind share by public, private, government, academia, civil society, blah, 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 everything, to really push the envelope using technology, right? And the starting point is, of course, engagement. And today's world, we are talking of 7-second engagement span of people, especially the younger generation. So it really requires a very different way of, and that's why I like some of the things presented in the morning, mobile first model, how do you get attention in first 7 seconds, right? Things like that, which kind of opens up a whole new canvas about inclusion and access. Gain the attention, engage quickly. But we have some fundamental issues right now, right? I mean, there's a broader notion of innovation divide. It's not so much about demographic divide, which a lot of countries have been speaking. It's not about digital divide, which we all used to speak till last decade. I think we are really talking of some new type of divide, which are coming up in last 4 or 5 years. Just to give you a couple of perspectives from what I see, innovation asymmetry, for example, right? Top 5 tech giants in the world control so much information about you that you don't know. That's one innovation asymmetry, for example. This whole 1% economy which we talk about, right? Rich are getting richer faster, that top 1%, right? So that is resulting into huge divide further because of control over innovation, so to say. So how do we democratize it? That's the whole issue around innovation asymmetry. Similarly, innovation inequality. I mean, we talked about younger people and youth, right? Similarly, for women and girls, the amount of inequality we are talking today is huge, and we didn't used to talk about it in last decade, but this decade, it is a global conversation. But what do we do with that is a big, big, big question in front of startups like this. Otherwise, I mean, I only have one daughter, so I can't really bear the fact that it will take 175 years, I'm quoting World Economic Forum, 175 years to bridge global gender divide. 60% of world work done by women, only 2% of income gained by world women, only 0.5% of world asset controlled by women. As a father of only one daughter, this is not acceptable to me. So we are talking about that divide, and that divide is huge as far as Asia is concerned. I do not want to get into the data. ILO talks about lost generation. ADB says that 25 to 35% of all this can be attributed to skilling. And skilling is not just knowledge or education or certification. It is more about mindsets. Disruption is going to only couple that, amplify that. You know, since I come from India, I can tell you this Indian example. We all built national competitive advantage, the India story of IT and English, that India become a global superpower because of IT skills, English skills. Today, that national competitive advantage is a threat. And I'm talking of as big country as India, which otherwise is sitting on a demographic bomb, so to say. Every year, if we are losing 100,000 IT jobs because of the automation, right? You know, next few years you may have, today itself, people say that 95% of Indian engineers are non-employable. 95%, so can you imagine that kind of a problem we are talking, right? And automation will only couple that because it's disrupting the traditional work. So we actually have this great skill crisis, and there is no doubt about it. Some of the jobs which didn't even exist today are becoming very, very fascinating, high-income, high-earning jobs. We support one project around drone education in community colleges. And I can tell you, I mean, I didn't realize that the drone-related job or work or task is so much of a high-paying job today because all of us, even at a smallest level, at a small town level, look at drone photography for as simple things as weddings. So think, who had thought about using drone photographer for the weddings, right? And that has become one of the hot skills because it's not very easy to get that today, right? Institute of the Future, somebody quoted it. I will also quote Institute of the Future's research for some of the skills for the future research which we did. 10 skills, sense making, design thinking, so on and so forth. But last year we actually asked them to revisit this research. It's an 8-year-old research actually if you go to the website. And very interestingly, and not surprising to us, what came out as the number one skill beyond the 10 skills listed on the deck is skills like how do we deal with resilience, grit. And that's going to be very important with this guys, resilience and grit as a new skill because of the disruption. You better disrupt yourself, otherwise somebody else will. We are talking of a fundamental shifts happening in the skill, and you would have seen this again coming out of MIT, a very famous graph that the jobs of the tomorrow will require more and more skills which are non-routine, cognitive, analytical, interpersonal, while schools or education system, those skills which are easier to teach, easier to test, are also easier to automate or digitize or outsource. So that's a shift, or that's a crisis of education today. The second thing, beyond learning skill crisis, is how do we think about choices of allotting work to technology? Again, I'm quoting an MIT research, 4 simple ways of allotting. And the last one, tool, assistant, peer, and manager. As human beings, we're dealing with technology for last many centuries, nothing new. You actually use technology as manager in your day-to-day life. You have to recognize that. When you go to a street light and there's a red signal given to you and say that stop, it's a technology which is playing a role of a manager. It's not you, right? So it's okay. But you need to take a call which task you give to technology as a tool or assistant. Email is a good tool, right? Siri is a good assistant, right? Chatbot is a good peer. Red light signal is a good manager. We have to decide, not the technology. So that's the point which we kind of have to learn, and that is a new burden on this generation. So what does it mean now from that mindset shift standpoint? Today you would have heard a lot about disruption in that sense, right? Or how do we really build its new mindset? I think those days are gone where you used to think that school, college, master, job, retirement. Forget about that. I can tell you in my own career of 25 years, I have changed career 3 times. I think some of you guys will land up changing careers 15 times, 5 times more than me. Believe me. So how do you do it? That's a question. It's not easy, right? So this whole path of discovery to create, to apply, to reframe, to iterate, to assess, to experiment, and do this continuously every day. That's what a successful startup will have to learn. That's what any successful enterprise will have to learn. I think that's where there is a bigger question. How do you disrupt yourself? Because if you're not going to do it, somebody else will. My only urge to all of you would be, please write down your own disruption plan. Because believe me, I can challenge you after hearing today 12 pitches. I can challenge you. How can I disrupt your own businesses in next 2 years only? So before somebody else tell you, you better write down your own disruption plan that in next 2 years, this is how I'm going to kill my business model and come up with something new. I will skip some of this. This is again coming from one of the interesting research which we did with Forbes on what kind of skills which are required in the new jobs of tomorrow. I just want to show you a quick video before I finish it on, in this context of cyber, physical, biological world, how do we look at inclusive innovation very interestingly. Can you play the video for me, please? Play the volume. Can you play the volume? So as they figure out the volume, let me tell you about this video. It's about a 15-year-old boy who created world's first company on Braille, for the blinds, a Braille 3D printer to really create the books for the blinds. A 15-year-old boy. So his company is called Bravago, and he became world's youngest guy to get a VC funding of $500,000 at the age of 15. He's an Indian guy who created this company called Bravago, and you can go and Google about him. Founder name is Shubham Banerjee. I think that's the kind of a role model examples which we need, who take the new leadership mindset, new possibilities from not just personal success to this larger significance to make this whole world more inclusive through innovation. It's okay if you're not able to play it. That's fine. I'll skip this. So the question here is, how do you really stitch the ecosystem? Think big, act small, as we say, right? You can't really be excellent in all the pieces, all the P's, as we say, right? I think it's a T skill. Look at 3-4 P's, but pick 1 or 2 P's where you can tell yourself that I am world class. You may not be world class in all, the horizontal, but on the depth, you should be world-class in platform or a partnership or a product or a program. 1P has to be world-class for you. It's going to be a collective responsibility. Again, leverage the network. This issue cannot be addressed by only one side of the world, be it government or academia or businesses. So you have to figure out how to stitch that ecosystem with the larger stakeholders. Development, I mean, this is my last slide, and with my favorite quote. Society thrives in sustainable way, and I'm quoting World Bank guy, only when inclusion and innovation come together, help expand the circle of opportunity for people. Thank you so much.